Welcome everyone to another episode of The Life of Charles Schmidt. Today we will be talking about what money doesn't tell you. Charles, welcome one more time to another part of your life where you will be telling me, the viewers, and the world what money doesn't tell you. To begin with, in the previous video you talked about how you inherited all the money from your late wife and how the conditions that you were before marrying her. So describe what it's the feeling like of being wealthy now.
Well, it's a great feeling, but it's all relative. In other words, I was wealthy compared to what I used to be, but I didn't have nearly as much as what all of Gene's friends had. In other words, I was not in their strata, and the way I got to, Gene introduced me to a lot of people because she was in that high society group that I enjoyed meeting those people. A lot of them were real interesting, and a lot of them weren't. So you can't judge somebody, the quality of the person by the money. What I observed was a lot of the very wealthy people, their topic of conversation. Well, let me tell you about where I'm going on my vacation. I'm going to Spain. I'm going to Italy. I'm going to my house in London. Going to my apartment in Paris. In other words, that also where I'm going to dinner, where I went to dinner last night, where I went to dinner last week, or about the grandchildren. So there's all these topics that on the surface are not topics that are going to make a difference in my life or anybody else's life. They will say, Henry, how you doing? And before you can tell them how you're doing, they're going to tell you, what's going on with them.
Got it. So that being said, what differentiates Charles from the rest of these people?
Well, I think that I have a lot of their good qualities, and I like to eat and drink.
Eat and drink, okay.
And that's not good for me. The food tastes great, and the atmosphere is great, and the feeling is great, but it's not good for my health, or my weight, or my longevity.
Gotcha. Do you feel superior to others given your wealth status?
Not at all.
Not at all?
It never crosses my mind.
Gotcha.
It doesn't, no.
So, once again, in the previous video, you talked about so you were coming back from being basically broke before you met your late wife, and now that you have left behind with all of this wealth, what is the most extravagant thing that you ever bought for yourself, and what does it feel like?
Well, I think the most extravagant thing was buying that Bentley.
But you guys already had a Bentley, right?
Well, we already had
upgraded a Bentley.
I mean, because of the $20 little key battery, or $10, $2, I don't know how much it cost.
You had the capacity to say.
I had the capacity to do it, and it was a spur of the moment to do it, and I did it, and
Okay, so
but there's other things that happen along the way.
Great.
Like Summer, who's been very helpful to me, helped me. She's helped me through, not socially, but just as having a partner,
a companion,
a genuine companion who was interested in my well-being. Now, extravagant. After I sold my apartment, I bought her a house at the top of the market, $650,000. And besides that, she had a $200,000 condominium with a mortgage on it. And so I paid cash. I paid full price. In other words, I went to look at it, and I said to somewhere, I said, "Do you really like this?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." So I had the proceeds of my apartment, and I paid full price.
So you bought her the house?
No, I bought the house in my name in the trust, but then after a while, of course, I have health issues, and I think that I'm not going to make it, and so I decided, what do I need that house in trust, in my name, in my trust, and then she will get it inherit. Why don't I just give it to her right now? So I just signed a quitclaim deed and gave it to her. That's okay.
So after all this, after you getting all the wealth, after you basically, in other words, becoming rich, how did people begin treating you? I know on the other video you talk about your friend that basically asked you what you were trying to prove by the new lifestyle you were getting. So how did they begin treating you after?
Well, they knew I had money, and I always picked up every check that I could. In other words, if I go out to dinner, I would pick up the dinner check for whatever it was. But see, I got invited to a lot of private clubs where I couldn't pay. So, in other words, they would pay for my dinner, and so it was.
So you were passing it forward.
Yeah, it was a very friendly, mutually beneficial relationship.
And speaking of relationships, how did your friendships shift once you gained all the wealth?
Well, I still maintained a lot of the friendships with people that I met through Alcoholics Anonymous. Didn't have any money, I was still friends with them. And I also shared a lot of my money with people that, I was, anybody that had some kind of a hard luck story, I'd give them money.
Perfect. So what was the most painful betrayal that you experienced?
Most painful betrayal was when I befriended this college professor and his wife.
Okay.
That I trusted. That my son said I was kind of stupid. He didn't say stupid. He said it in a nice way, but I didn't say. And it wasn't stupidity. It was just plain senility. In other words, older people aren't as rational as they should be. They are victimized by people, and I was victimized, but not to the extent that it would affect my lifestyle. It gave me an awareness that, you gotta pay attention. And another thing is that because I've been up and down and made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, got a lot of money, lost it again. This time around, I'm not gonna lose it all. Might lose a little bit of it, but I'm very cautious in the stock market. In other words, I call myself a 4%er. Now, a 4% guy only makes 4% on his money. That's not very much.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like no one really knew you? Or do you think there were no changes in your personality, your attitude, or the way you were towards others?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that didn't know me, but it's not something that concerns me, in that, going back again, when I first met Jean Jean had great difficulty accepting me because of her friends said, "Better watch out. Better be careful. Better watch out." And she did watch out, and she was careful. But after you get to know somebody, you get to trust them more and more until such time as you're betrayed or you're not betrayed.
Gotcha. Was there a time when you felt like money had actually isolated you from the world, meaning you didn't trust everyone, you were afraid of like people seeing you as the money person kind of thing?
No.
No?
That didn't concern me. I'll tell you what, and this betrayal by the professor and his wife, and it could have been so much worse because when I was doing my estate planning, I didn't want my two kids fighting with each other. So I definitely want to put my money in charge of somebody that I trusted. And I didn't want to do it through a bank because the banks, it's a money-making process, and they charge a lot of fees, and they are in it for making their own money.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to do it through an attorney because, I didn't trust them all. They're in it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
But see, I trusted the professor and his wife, and I was going to make him my personal representative. And fortunately, I saw the light just before I did that. So
that's great.
I am very grateful to the gods or whoever I thank for my good senses finally came around, that I didn't proceed to a point where I could have lost it all.
Gotcha. Now, given that situation, that you now are somehow skeptical about trusting people, about letting anyone in your life, do you ever feel lonely after losing your wife?
Yeah, sure. But I do something about it. Like I go out. I force myself to go out even when I don't feel up to it or I don't like to. I get involved with the universities, charities, the symphony, Dreyfus School, and I had a real good relationship with Dreyfus School, which I don't have anymore because, the professor and everything, and now that Dreyfus School, not too sure that they think they're very protective of their kids, just like Jean, my wife, is very protective of her money.
Yep.
They're protective. They don't want anything to happen, and so.
Which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, Charles, going back to you, has there been a moment that you realized that money isn't enough and that you would rather have a different lifestyle than living the lifestyle that you have now?
Well, for the amount of money I have, I do not live an extravagant lifestyle. Mm-hmm. This is a modest apartment.
Yep. I can easily tell. Mm-hmm.
But what's the question again?
If there has been a moment where you realize that money isn't enough.
No, the money is enough. I have enough money, and I'm on a 3-year time plan where I'm going to give away about half my money.
Okay.
And I'm already into the year and a half part. So I've already given away. I am not going to wait until I die before I give it away.
Gotcha. Has there been also a moment that you have felt unfulfilled now with all the wealth that you have gained? Because you have the opportunity to go on vacation whenever you want, buy anything you want, but has there been a moment like that where you're like, what am I doing? This is not enough. This is not what I expected. This is not what I want.
The thing that has handicapped me is not the money, it's the health.
Okay.
And the awareness that my mortality is limited.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have, I've done some things here, like, I'm kind of not, I don't have a lot of friends in this building because I was the president. I gave them $20,000 a couple of years ago for landscaping, and they only spent about $5,000, and they kept $15,000 in their pocket. Now, I've asked for an accounting of that, and I didn't get it. But that money's gone, but they don't appreciate it here. Then I've helped other people, with somebody needs money for something, and just I've given away.
And that's great. It brings me to another question, actually. What lessons do you learn about wealth that you think everyone should hear about? I know you're amazing giving advices to your family members, to people that are closest in your circle. But what would you tell everyone out there? What is something that you learn about wealth?
Money doesn't buy happiness.
Money doesn't buy happiness.
You can do everything, and it's some people just want to take, and that's okay, but they don't get very far. Like I was telling Ryan this morning, you got to think about what you can do for other people.
Yep.
My happiness comes from doing something for other people.
And it's really interesting. It looks like you know what my next question is, because my next question is, what matters to you now more than money ever did?
Well, it matters that if that kid becomes successful, if I see him I've done everything within my power to give him a boost and make him successful, that gives me a self-satisfaction, and I can enjoy that for as long as I live. And that when I was telling him, I have a story when I was 15 years old in my program. When he gets to be 84 years old, he might say, I remember when my grandfather, he was on FaceTime, and he was telling me certain things when I was 15 years old. So, yeah.
So, from basically from what I heard, family matters to you. The people in your inner circle matters to you more than what you actually have. In other words, or more.
Yeah, my friendships, but also just because somebody is in my family doesn't qualify them to share my wealth or happiness or anything.
But it's still important to you, right?
Well, they have a door open to them, and if they want to be ne'er-do-wells, just like my father thought I was, I'm going to cut you off. I thought it was a little bit harsh, and I didn't like it, but it was a good lesson. But if kids in my family turn out to be spoiled, they'll get some money, but they won't have a fulfilling life that I would want them to have.
Gotcha. So speaking of fulfillment, do you feel like you finally made peace with success, or do you think that you will feel successful once you reach this 3-year mark?
No, yes, I'm at peace. I think that my plan is on schedule to the way I have it planned. And I'm at peace that if the lights go out tonight, I was in the process, I was on the trip. I didn't just give up and, pass off. I did not suffer. Like, I don't know, I have congestion problems. I have some health issues that are very real. But no doctor's given me any kind of a timeline. Now, some people that have cancer, which I don't, they say, well, you've got 30 days to live, or you've got 3 months to do, you better get yourself in order. So my timeline hasn't come, but I know that my time is limited, and I don't want to waste my time. I want to do stuff, and also I get great satisfaction talking to you, talking to kids, talking to, my grandson, my daughter, my son. Just, I would say that I'm quite satisfied. I would be more satisfied if my son would find a business that I could help him with.
But that will come right along. So to close out with today's episode, can you talk to the viewers? What is stuff that money doesn't tell you? Meaning, everyone wishes or dreams of becoming rich, getting money, but what is something on the other side of the grass? The saying says that the grass is not always green on the other side. So what is like being on the other side? What is something that money doesn't tell you?
What's that question again?
Would you tell the viewers about what is something that money doesn't tell you? Meaning, everyone basically wishes and dreams about getting rich at some point, but they don't know what is actually on the other side.
Everybody thinks that the goal, if I get rich, I'm going to be happy. That is just, I don't know what the correlation is, but I know some very rich people that are not happy. And I know some very, people not so happy, or people not so rich that are very, very happy.
And you said, and you already mentioned that you're at peace. Now let me ask you this question.
Yes, I am.
Is Charles happy?
Yes, I'm happy.
Wonderful.
I'm happy that I'm on a mission, that as the older I get, more perception. Of course, I wish I could, have another 50 years, or I could go 50 years back, but that's not possible. So one day to the next, like when I wake up this morning, I'm looking forward to you coming here to talk to me. I'm looking forward to talking to my grandson and my daughter. I'm looking forward to
basically making the things that make you happy.
Yeah.
Right?
And the things that it's not, I like to be myself, and I like to, but I also like to be with people.
Gotcha. Well, everyone, this is the end of this episode. Charles, that was an amazing story. I am sure that people out there are gonna learn more about you. Stay tuned for the next video. There's more interesting stuff about these great men coming up. So stay tuned. Thank you, everyone.